Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Guys 9.11. And just start off, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for many more great videos. I'm sure you'll have lots of fun here. Okay, well, let's continue this. We are invading Greece. Keep following troops, keep us from getting cut off, yes. Okay, let's... Where here, you guys? Seeing we may be having a little bit of a supply issue here, so... Air supply to there. And we've won the Battle of Stockholm. And we have enforced puppet on Sweden. Okay, hopefully we didn't damage Sweden too badly. That's a little bad there. And then they can now build up their armed forces. And they are part of the Axis and a puppet. Yay. So let's look at our current situation here. We have been for a while. You have officers covering. Okay, so every day we're getting 500 new officers. We need 230,000 officers to for proper ratio at least. I guess that's and we have 200 and almost 70,000 officers. Now, this is one thing that I was asked about. Why am I putting so much leadership still into officers when I've maxed out the numbers? I haven't maxed out the numbers. What I have done here is, at least this is as I understand it, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, is the highest percentage of officers that we can have in units is 110%. And what that means is, let me just get a regular sort of division here. Come on, regular sort of division here. Regular, I said a regular, there we go, regular sort of division. Okay, this division has 110% of its officers. It's going to have much faster organizational regain rate than if we had, say, 50% of the officers. I believe, in standard Hearts of Iron, I believe it's 140%. You can get to on your officer ratio, but Black Ice, because the AI doesn't seem to go over 100%. Once it gets to 100%, it stops making new officers or slows down dramatically or whatever. But basically, it doesn't normally go over it. So what they wanted to do is to, because it's already with the AI, it's already easy enough to win. To not make it so that you can't push it too far over what the AI is going to do. So that's 110%. But as I understand it, is we keep making more officers every day. Now we're also losing officers in combat too. That's an issue. So we are making officers. Oh, and we'll get to that in a second. So we're making officers. Now we can make a whole lot more officers past 110%, but we can only effectively reinforce officers to units, to these guys or any other grade of unit that's in combat, up to 110%. So it basically is we are putting more and more people into the pool, and they're sitting around doing absolutely nothing. But what happens is when you go into combat, you lose a certain amount of officers. And it seems, again, this just may seem, units higher up here seem to take higher casualty rates than units down here. Seems to be. I don't know that this is proven. Now, part of the reason you'll see the transports get gutted real easy is they don't have a lot of defense value. So they get gutted, their personnel gets killed off real quickly. But they're, and since they're transport units, all there really is there to affect movement rates. And whether they're at full strength or completely gutted, it doesn't harm the movement rate. So you just, that's part of the reason there's often so few people, because we don't want to make them, we or the developers, don't want to make them some sort of super combat unit, so they can just get gutted and then keep getting refilled. They have very low officer quote levels and similar sorts of things that we have even somewhere here. May not be something we see. I know there's something in the code you can go in and look at and determine how many officers for a unit. I don't think it's something we see here, but these units take a lot more damage just because they're not like a panzer unit that has much more defensive values. So, and since, like I say, if they're gutted, they don't negatively affect movement rates, and that's all they're designed to do. Now, maybe had the, and so the priority, it seems to be, so again, seems, I'm not sure, but is designed to sort of have infantry units or frontline units take higher levels of casualties than some of the support units. Seems. Again, I don't have good stats or information on it, and I very well may be wrong. Now, because we're sticking the headquarters up top here so that we see it, may mean we're taking higher levels of officers' deaths. Maybe. Again, I'm not sure of that. But that is a maybe. Now, one thing I am sure is if you do what I'm doing here, that you have a higher, this headquarters here has a higher number of officers it needs for this unit here. Again, I don't think it's any value we see, but it's in the code. I don't know, let's say it needs 1,000 officers, since this is a group, in an army group, or just an army. Panzer group, army, it's an army, that's right, it's an army. And this is, and similarly, since this is a and I don't know for sure if it's more because it's that or not, but let's just say it's for a corps. I don't, may not be any numbers different, but if you put this HQ into combat, you're going to have higher numbers of officers killed. It's just the way it works. It's not really, the game was not designed to put corps or even army groups really into combat. They were meant to stay one or two provinces behind and to keep them out of combat. Now this guy's out. I'm shifting the headquarters down to try to catch up, but I'm being very aggressive with him. But what I am doing here is wanting to take advantage of this leader's skill in combat. So we have created a combat corps, in this case a combat army, in which has lots of support units. Now historically this is quite how it was, except this part, and presumably the transport part, would try to stay out of combat, and they would just temporarily assign some motorized engineers, some reconnaissance guys, some artillery or whatever, to other divisions within the corps, or within the army. And they actually did have army level assets. I don't know that they too much wouldn't be above army level, but army level assets that they would temporarily assign to different divisions to do different operations. So this is historical, this is how it works, but by using these as combat HQs, you will take a higher rate of casualties for officers than if you didn't. That is part of the reason why I'm trying to build up higher than 110%. The other, or higher numbers, the percent doesn't go up. But the other reason is all these lovely, well, we can find some more up here, lovely HQ units here that will be at different times dropped in via events. Well, come on, we had a bunch. Clicking through a bunch of these earlier. Like this guy, boom, this guy, this guy. These are all take hits to reducing our officer levels at times. So to supply those. So, and I don't know when or how much more these are just going to start appearing. So I want to have a cushion. So it isn't really important or anything for battling in Greece because we're losing some and we're going to lose some in North Africa, but it isn't that bad. It's really for the Soviet Union and wanting to keep the officers up. Now, of course, you can switch this over to like research now, and then once you start grinding down on them, you can switch back and try to catch back up. But as we see, it takes time. So I'm just trying to develop a pool. Fairly soon, I'm going to reduce this down. Now, I'm still going to be the second biggest expense of leadership, but in time, I'm going to reduce this down. Make it a little less numbers. Like doing like this. Now, this guy isn't, I mean, he isn't even in combat yet. Once he gets in there, he'll be the secondary unit. So he's not taking heavy losses, but definitely taking more losses than if he wasn't in combat. You do have attritional. I don't know how much attrition losses. I don't know how much that affects officers. I just don't like that 5% mountain unit training, airborne unit training. Desert. Oh, we want to do desert unit training. We should have been doing desert unit training before this. We're going to be sending guys to the desert. Okay, you attack there and then down into there, down to the Salonika. Now, we didn't show up last episode when I was looking at this, but we can see now here, Zurich and these other provinces here now no longer have any revolt risk because we have German corps in them. I did sort of, some of these, this is I think a Romansh, mostly speaking province. Maybe, I don't know, mostly, I don't know. Here, and maybe Lucerne. I didn't, some of these others I think are German majorities, but knowing that some of the concentrations it seemed like for the National Socialist parties were more in this region, it seemed, I decided to give that's all the corps. Some of these areas not so much, and definitely not the French speaking areas. So we can look at where are we? Here we are. We can see here, these are the only real province that, other than just overall revolt risk likelihoods, which not anything really, but get a little more benefit for having corps here now for the industry and the resources and more leadership and whatnot. So just that's because we supported the National Socialists earlier. Okay, we got Oresund, which affects supply and leadership up here, because we now have, and I'm surprised that we're getting it so soon, because I thought we had to have something here as well, but I guess we don't. and something I'm not used to getting because I normally don't invade Sweden. Because normally when I think of invading, I think of conquering, and I really didn't know that I wanted to occupy it. But since we have them as puppets, that'll work out better for us, because we won't have to occupy them, and they will... Hopefully some of their navy survived. I know I was operating against some of it, but I got some submarines there. I even have some aircraft. I wonder if they have the aircraft. We sold them. Sold them. Didn't we sell them the naval bombers? I don't know. But oh, here we go. Oh, more submarines. I thought they had some surface ships. Maybe I sunk them all. Oh, here we go. Coastal battleships. There we go. So 3 coastal battleships, a destroyer, and 2 light cruisers. That's a decent little kind of fleet to deal with the Soviets along with mine. So that'll be hopefully useful once they come in. So we have them. Supplies, that's great. I mean, really is 10% more supplies. And leadership +5. Well, leadership, that's nice. Okay. And because it's now a puppet, we have increased our puppetry. We also have these guys here. So we have national manpower modifier basically represents, we can come in here and recruit for us, you know, and not just for your own army. And puppets give us more money and more resources. There, of course, because they're also puppets, they do give us their excess resources as well. So that should be helping us out. And because we've, I don't know, did we get theirs? We've got all of the we got so much oil, so much of everything now. Wow, look at that, guys. Well, I want to keep the trade up with Bulgaria. And currently we are down by a lot there. So we definitely don't need any more steel. So that doesn't cost us so much, but we're going to cancel all the steel deals. And look at all that still coming in. Oh wow, look at all that. Look at that. Though I think I'm not absolutely sure. I know the display is 99,999, but I think that may be the real number. I think the rest is thrown away. But a lot's coming in from convoys. It's just coming in from captured Sweden or whatnot. But let's cancel all these Soviet stuff. We can get it back if we need it. I think it'll obviously take a while. And once we get down to where we're not, you know, get below, just below the, you know, was 90,000, because that's basically 100,000, but just get down to 80,000, then we can start ramping back up our purchasing from the Soviets. Maybe this will hurt the Soviets, maybe it won't, because we're definitely looking at about more than a year before we get in there. Sort of want to keep supplying Romania, and I want to keep on Finland. Oh, Finland's our ally, isn't it, already? So, well, we'll keep that trade open. We're just shutting down the Soviet trade. I'm keeping the Bulgaria because I want to try to get Bulgaria into our... I mean, they're already allowing us passage through. So that, but that'll hopefully improve there. Look at. Okay, well, what kind of units we have here? Okay. And our terrain, yeah, mountains, hills. You can go into the mountains, you can go, come through here. Break your check tanks and come down this way. But we've won here. But you rush into Salonika while the rest of you guys keep moving south. Oh man, that's a lot of stuff. Now, see, now we're back down to, yeah, and that sort of does confirm that all that excess goes, no, it just goes off the books. Okay, well, the Japanese have taken out another opposition here. And collecting more information on some of these puppet states that Japan dealt with. I'd give at least the northern half to, what's this, Manchukuo here. Yeah, they've got cores there, they should get that. Sort of collaborationist Mongolia or Inner Mongolia or whatever you want to call it. Okay, guys, you get to plunge down this way. Nah. And because I don't know how much we're going to keep selling because Soviet Union may run out of money very fast here. Probably don't need to make all these supplies right now, though. Of course, we have a pretty good stock, but we do want to overmake them because it's not hugely overstocked. There we go. That'll help out our production of other things. Well, some of these I'm just afraid you're going to pull away from current use things, but that one, again, I have now only finished the immersion elements. Okay, the division number 178, Ersatz Reserve Army. Okay, that isn't, obviously it's costing us manpower and supplies, but it is not taking anything away from a front unit being used or nearly being used or something. Now this one is a yellow title, so don't upgrade this unit because it's going to be changing. So if you upgrade it and then later, well, it has some panzers. So let's see if we can find a level 2 sort of armored warfare kind of guy. There we go. Skill level 2, that is. It's actually a fairly good one. It's this is based off our research, what it sort of looked like. Obviously it's not, it just has some panzers, not too huge amount, but we're going to move it over here so we don't lose it, and we'll be ready for dealing with possible invasions. We would give them metal each day. Okay, we are still more metal. Great. Keep coming down in here. You may make it to the front. You made it. You get to attack into those hills, mountains. We got all these semi-motorized infantry to attach to some of the French captured equipment. Okay, where are the obviously there's Athens. Basically there's Athens left for victory points. So we found this given by event. That's a very good mountain HQ. Okay, yeah, we'll do some of that soon. Well, von Kleist is moving down there very fast. Now let's take a look at this naval situation here, okay? Remember what was the last episode? Making a couple right next to each other. We saw that big fleet moving along. I'd take that fleet apart probably, but that's still a much bigger fleet than ours. British forces. Having all these aircraft out here moving around is helping us spot. We'll go back to this view. Okay, you're not very well organized, but you are reasonably a good strength. Okay, well, what I think we should do is, oh, that'd be an interesting idea. Let's make a few of these guys. Just recon cavalry. Engineers most assuredly. And horse transport. We're going to use an HQ. Obviously you can see we've added rocket artillery, and we definitely have engineers, so that these are fortress busting divisions. Now we can stick on a super good heavy artillery piece if we want to. You know, train artillery, but even without that, these will just give a little bit extra. Now I like this idea. I don't normally put these in most divisions because they eat up a lot more supplies once they're in combat. The key word is in combat. Now I probably never have them right where I need them. You know, come up on some city and go, oops, you know, where are they? Oh, way far away. But they might be, and I might be able to get them there. So That's sort of my thinking with them, is do some of them. Now they're also cheap to, the rocket artillery is cheap to build. So you'll find, and I don't know what I did here, but it's anti-aircraft guns. Those have, which are good. I may build a bunch more rocket artillery to stick into some of these garrison units. I often do use them for, I don't think I had rocket artillery when I did these. Have rocket artillery there, because if they're just sitting and not moving, not attacking, they don't eat up that much in the way of supply. So they are good for then. Okay, let's move into here. What do we have? Light cruiser, some air power. No, this is probably just a little safer. Let's move into Benghazi. I guess we need to rebase because of the short range of the motor torpedo boats or something. But they're going to move fast, and we're going to micromanage them. Partially, I don't want to lose the transports. Even more so, I don't want to lose the divisions. If we even see a hint of a real British naval force, not a single cruiser or whatever this might be. I don't think this is anything too major. Ooh, what do we have here? No, it's gone, which is good. Okay, cruiser fire control systems, that's good. You got a fair amount of cruisers, that'll help. Well, these aren't quite up to date, but I don't know that I want to spend the time on that. So, let's do infantry unit training. As a replacement, and destroyer escort role has advanced. Are we now in a major deficit or something? No, just a little bit. Okay, destroyer escort role. We're definitely stopping that. Do we want to shift it somewhere else or not? No, we're pretty well caught up. And we still have light cruiser training or whatever, but we can shift over one of these other guys. Once we get, oh no, I think that's way too near for accidental hitting like I just did. Okay, we are now attacking into the capital. Oh, they've abandoned their fortifications with against Italy there. Albania, whatever. Not that that isn't smart, because it's not, you're not being really useful. Okay, fire control solutions. I think that is here and it's grayed out. Okay, good. And self-propelled artillery brigades. That may also be grayed out, yeah. Okay, these are all looking very well. Yeah, let's do this. Improve our morale. Yeah, let's go for a drive, everybody. Sweden is mobilizing. Well, nice. Oh, you joined that fighting attack there. Yeah, you push along there. Just occupy that up. Okay, we made it. Good. Not even a scratch. Okay. Well. You're all full up. Where are you? You're there. So let's detach you for the moment. May have not been the best one to detach. I don't know. Detach and attach. Keep everybody here. So let's do some panzers to the rescue. Under Schweppenberg instead of Rommel, but Rommel's there. Cast ground crew, which I think we're moving that over to attack ground crew. Now, at least temporarily, it says we have 103,000, so it can display it, but it doesn't want us to stockpile too much, and I sort of agree with that to some degree. Yeah, I agree with that. We don't want to stockpile too much. What is too much? I don't know. That's another question. Okay, recon unit combined arms has advanced. Very good. Let's move that. Well, we're going to let that go because it's going to be 41 all soon, and we like those. And, of course, we've annexed Greece, and I don't like that element. Well, probably have events. I really wish it was a situation of occupation. Those, I think, give us more leadership, though. Well, come down to Athens. Well, since we do have this, let's build an air base there. Yeah, or an air base or so in Salonik, and let's move it to the top. Oh, here we go. I don't know what those are. Okay, these are probably strong enough to resist just any old limited airstrike. Of course, some big massive stuff coming down. So let's come out here. Convoy raid. Passively. Go home if you get too beat up. what is this? Okay, that is just air power, which can still be a bit of a danger. That is their strategic bomber. See, now they're going to strategically bomb here in Greece because it's my territory and not an occupied territory. So we want to up that interception there. And we can also, where? From there, we have some fighters, don't we? Are they both all here? Okay, so you guys come down here. Here we go. Now we want you to come up and air intercept this region here. And you as well. Take out any of those bombers that come over this part of the world. Single engine aircraft armament. And it is grayed out. Now I guess we'll continue shifting over to here. Now, are we ready for a dash back? These guys are fast. I want to come to here, I think. Okay, guys. Well, no, now's the time to do this. We've got national decisions ready to happen. Okay, Belgrade Falls. Been sort of waiting for this to show up. Okay, so we want to hit that. Okay, now we decide. We're going to yeah, we're going to partition it. There's several reasons to do it, not just historical. There's some other good reasons to do this as well. Now we annexed that, but we then do this, release Croatia, and then we, because it gives us this, which we steal this from Italy to give us the ability to, and creation of Serbia, create the puppet state. Yes, we'll do that. So that now we have this here, and they have their, oh, outbreak of partisanism. Well, at least we had somebody there to keep the capital from falling. Don't know which guys will move there. So now we have Serbia as well. What is sort of good with some of this is keeping that puppet master and eventually come all the way down to the bottom, I believe. Now, maybe not quite so far down. Oh, I guess it isn't so far down. Thought it was at the bottom. Here we are. We still haven't got this, so I may have to fire that thing. Get the flag for the Swedish steel. Make sure we keep lots of steel, though it cuts into our money, of course. But still, I want the steel because we're gonna continue needing more and more. There's eventually getting Puppet Master, which is 6 puppets. So that currently we have the 3. We'll get 6, and that will help us even more, obviously, with things. So that is some of the good reasons. Plus, it does sort of create a bit of an occupation force, and other things like that will happen. So we want to do that. Now let's come down here. Okay, form this now. Okay, because I don't want to have a HQ problem like I did on von Kleist. So let's see, I've got to find the what's that, the 14th, or is that, yeah, no, the 19th. Yes, that is. I'm not that great with Roman numerals. The 19th, because that's 10 and 10, but minus 1 from one of the 10, so that's the 19th. Okay, where is the 19th? But it's XIV. Well, you know, let's just set a core. It's a motorized core. Von Rundstedt. Okay, you come over here. XIV. Let's see if we can find XIV. There we go. See, that's what we're looking at here. Okay, we don't know exactly what we're going to get here, but this is Guderian's current core. We're going to create Panzer Group at Guderian. So we'll lose all of that, but we'll get, but we're losing that. So realize we're losing this core here, but we should be gaining a Panzer Group at Guderian, and then we get 2 more motorized cores out of that. So that's what we should do. So that is a net positive. Yes, we're losing, and no, and when we're trading up like this, I don't mind losing, you know, the units. I'm not going to cheat. One thing you may call it cheating, but I of course change the names of the shouldn't we be getting more? Oh, wait a minute. I just am not seeing it over there. Okay. Okay, Panzer Group A, Guderian, Flieger Corps. Okay, there we go. That's the other one. So we got that, and we got, well, maybe it's somewhere else. I don't know why it isn't down here on the bottom though. Yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure that's the new thing here. Maybe it isn't. Looks like it. It's a motorized core. I think that was one of them. This is why I like organizing the air the way it does, is you lose things and some of the stuff is dropped on the map. And not all in the same thing, same place. Now, I'm not sure why it isn't all at the bottom down here. That's been around for a while. And that's that one. Maybe it's been around. I don't know. Not sure. Okay. Yes, we will do preparations. Even though we're going to take quite a while before we do that. December 5th receive. So we will get. This will help us, even though it's going to cost us until March 41. Preparations. This will help, according to received military, reduce winter war negativity things. And propose, well, they're already in. We'll still do it, whatever. Okay, refit the 1st Panzer Division. Basically, it will take it from being a lot of we fit this light panzer brigades to one. Okay, and this is just forming. Of course, we could have done that without. And yes, hopefully none of these are coming out of North Africa after I moved those down there. Yes, so okay. And upgrade the 3rd Infantry Division motorization to S mode to their semi-motor to motorized. Okay. Refit the 14th to a motorized. Okay. Infantry Division. Okay. I don't know how many of these are going in there. Upgrade the 36th. I could read these, but then not really worth it. Party rally. Yeah, let's have a party. 3 hurrahs for the government. And we're gonna leave those. So, a lot of cool stuff. I want to check. Some of these may have gone into the production line. Yes, a bunch of them did. Okay, all to the top. Hopefully I still have 2 panzer divisions in North Africa. Well, not sure whether that was got my motorized or not. I'm thinking I didn't properly. Well, looks like they're still here. Good. We have those divisions now. Do we get any stuff on the map? The reason I'm worried, no, just because we may need it to have better assign generals to it. Okay, battle. Okay, we'll want against that. HQ divisions have advanced. Yeah, division HQs, I should say. Yes, and we want to keep that going. Even though we've had it, now we've had this hit to our leadership because we lost this territory that we had briefly. And Serbia, 5 units is intercepted. That's a lot for you, Serbia, but okay, you can start building it. I wish it just 2 or 3. Because it could choke your... Oh, let's just grab one of these. They're sort of... Oh. See, this is 500 officers, manpower. For no supporting units. No, never mind. Don't need them. Now, what do we have here? Okay, you keep coming here. You come down here. You keep coming. You can keep coming. What we want to do now is see about getting some where are they? Oh, here. Still okay. We want to move you to here. I think it's safe-ish. So we'll rebase to Athens. I want to reinforce and burst out of here into the can. I'm not absolutely sure I can get across that border. I don't want to call them into the war just yet. Okay, sonar detection equipment. That is good. We can spot their... I guess that's grayed out. Oh, the submarines. Yes, okay, so we've improved our submarines and aviation navigation radar advanced. I think that's up here, isn't it? Yeah. We'll stop that because... Oh, you've run out of supplies? Is that it? Well, you know what we can do is... Where are you? Let's see if you'll make it. Fly you down here, and then supply you. Yeah, I won't do that. I could even supply you from here, I guess, if that. And because we took another capital, another big over push of supplies. No, too far away. Okay, come to here then. We'll fly supplies up. Oh, we're battling somebody. Okay, well, we're hitting these guys that are striking at us here. They're moving away, good. Aero engine research, great. That's grayed out. Right, yep. They're battling us, we're battling them, whatever. Yeah, these guys are swift. That's good about them. Okay, now you supply these guys. No, air supply, not rebase, air supply. You can have Cyprus if you take it. Small fuel tank, great. Well, we'll get to that soon. Twin engine bomb bay will stop. I guess that's the other one. So then we will now then do single engine fighter prototype. Twin engine bomb bay, which we did stop. Okay, we're taking out their naughty partisans who should know better than revolt against the Greater German Reich. Oh, come on, work. I know I clicked you as you're auto-saving. I know if we fail, it's my fault, but I'm not saying instability has nothing to do with it, but it is my fault because I shouldn't have clicked right on that. We're giving it time to see what happens. Well, it's not looking good. This is what happens once you oh, there you go, it works. I've had to, it just, if it's getting too much input right as it's trying to save, I've seen that maybe sometimes I just haven't been patient enough to sit there, but sometimes I know it just, I don't know, zooming out, trying to click on something just as it's saving, trying to do too much stuff right as it's saving will upset enough that it will crash it. So global game balance effect. Okay, so we've moved from neutral to oh no, we're now at neutral. Part of the over. Okay, we can now do total economic mobilization instead of just war economy. So we get 25% more resources, cuts in 5% on money. Well, we can afford that. Obviously, we had been in a massive debt because we're buying everything from the Soviets, and we'll be back buying some stuff, but not metal, I don't think. But some stuff for a while, after a while, but we're still sort of peaked out, so that's fine. Leadership, that's sort of the most, in my opinion, disliked thing on this. I'm not saying they're wrong. Adding the leadership thing is not a criticism, but just what I dislike about going over to it. Wartime consumer goods, that's a benefit to us. As peacetime, it'd be really painful. Daily descent increases, but here, I think we have enough, because we currently have 1 down from war economy. So the Fuhrer and whatnot. So I think we'll balance that out, and officer recruitment increases. So we want to do that. That increased economy. So 681. Yes, we will go to total war. And we have a bunch of new stuff to look at now that it's the first of the year. Okay, industry fine-tunes the war machine. Okay, well. War and Wehrmacht recruitment. Yep, okay, we'll take this. Ads Hind. Are you watching? Say hi below if you are. That's the name of the division. But you also use it as a screen name. An Indian viewer, often on the Saturday live streams. Currently, I'm live streaming Hearts of Iron 4 on Saturday. I know many of you aren't interested in that, playing it, and also maybe not watching it, but they've really improved it in this last DLC, and I'm not being overly effusive about it. They've really improved it. Not saying it's where you want to go just yet. There's a difference between making massive improvements and, hey, it's better than Hearts of Iron Black Ice for 3, you know. It's definitely, in my opinion, if it was between playing right now, if it was between playing Hearts of Iron Their Finest Hour, Hearts of Iron 3 Their Finest Hour, or Hearts of Iron 4 Waking the Tiger, I think I would be picking Hearts of Iron for Waking the Tiger. If those were the two comparison things, I think I would be all in for Hearts of Iron 4, if it was just that. But with Black Ice, we've got so much more detail, so much more. Then I am still here, and obviously I'm still here. And so long as it's popular, we're still going to be doing it on the channel. I had thought, quite honestly, a year or more ago, that they would have gotten their act together and we would all be more or less on Hearts of Iron 4 by now. But obviously they haven't. They're getting much better. So you might want to check out. And plus, also, hey, you know, it's the live Saturday, this is sort of a commercial for it. You may not be totally into Hearts of Iron 4. I get that, and but we talk about all kinds of stuff, and you know, well, it does even kind of match all kinds of stuff, but it definitely talks about things like you know, World War II stuff, and you know, even Hearts of Iron 3 sometimes is up and talking about it, and so you know, it's sort of just a fun time playing a World War II strategy game. So I can understand if you don't want to necessarily watch it later, but if you want to come and participate, love to have you guys around. So just sort of keep that in mind. At least Saturday morning my time, could be, who knows, you know, around the world where you are, but many of the European viewers, it's, I guess, late afternoon, early evening. So we can allow it. Increases our manpower, lowers our supplies, lowers our leadership and organization because of that's presumably the organization down is both quality and, excuse me, a little bit of hiccups, language problems, I presume. And along with the quality is some of the stuff there sort of, especially on some of the Eastern Front units, they're almost basically sort of Soviet units in that there are a lot of either, you know, there's a lot of former Soviet soldiers, a lot of former Soviet officers that have defected and come over under one status or another. The Germans probably could have got even more than they did had they really made a program of it. But a lot of those units are and personnel have not been retrained by the Wehrmacht, so that they're, you know, however they're maybe in the German army, but they're not necessarily German army quality. And there's a lot of that is, some of this will be seen in units, but it's also a lot of divisions at various times, and again, I've heard, story of one German unit, forget what it was, captured a bunch of Cossacks, or Cossacks sort of surrendered to them, or whatever you want to call it. I go, oh, okay. Oh, there's a whole lot of you. Okay, we'll take you. You surrender. Just sort of go, go to the rear. Because they were rushing forward and they couldn't. And I don't know what division or whatnot. They couldn't really, handle the prisoners. And just sort of like, yeah. Because I think it was sort of more surrendering, like, hey, we surrender. Good to meet you, kind of thing. Okay, yeah, you just sort of like go back to the rear and turn yourself in. Well, supposedly after a certain amount of time, and I don't know exactly where, they show back up. About, like, I don't know, 10 or 20 times as strong as they originally surrendered. Now they have some of them at least have German jackets. Oh, and they brought 3 or 4 tanks along with them. So former Soviet tanks that they somehow acquired, and trucks and other equipment. So they sort of like, recruited themselves, found some more, as they're moving back, they found some more and more units, and eventually they just started calling themselves whatever, and they showed back up. I guess they'd given, some sort of documentation or whatever that they were, had surrendered to the German unit or whatever. And they sort of showed back up, and okay, yeah, now we got an extra battalion or two of former Soviets. And so there was a lot of stuff, and they started out early on in many units as just laborers. And they were supposed to, at least the general ones, or the standard ones showing up for the Wehrmacht, were not supposed to have the German Army Eagle. I'm not talking about this Ad Heinz particular soldier here. But on the Eastern Front, they were supposed to wear the German Army jacket, have the German Army rank insignias, but not to have the German Army Eagle. That was not to be done. But I know from like some photos that I was looking at dealing with Russian collaborationist units that were from Yugoslavia, former white soldiers and the descendants of white soldiers that had come out under Wangel, however you pronounce it, who had got out, and many of them settled in Yugoslavia. They formed up, and we'll see a unit created by them, a fairly large unit that fought around in different brigades. Groups of officers standing around that, some of them have Russian style, like hat cockades, if you will, instead of the German one. Some of them have the German style on it, on their officers' hats. About half of them have the German Eagle, about half of them don't, in their officers' coats. These are like, lieutenants, captains, whatever. And it's sort of a mix, and this is all within one unit, a mix of having that and not having that. And this goes all ranks, that some do and some don't. Some sort of enforce it because they're not supposed to, and others don't care. And a lot of times just because of what's going on and clothing, for the Soviets, they still have their Soviet uniforms. They just put on a German coat over it because Germans don't have enough jackets and pants, and they don't have enough great coats, and it gets cold at times in the Soviet Union. Not even just in winter, but just enough. So they're just sort of layering it on and keeping their stuff. I don't think there was a whole lot of thought, at least early on, of, well, I'll keep my Soviet uniform, and if things go, if I get a chance, I'm splitting. I'm sure there was some of that was wanting to, it was just a temporary defect, but most of them really didn't want to go back to being under the Soviets. So this may, because I don't know if this gives us a flag that will recruit others, but we also get 75 manpower, so that's good. And so when you do have a national unit, some of them were fully trained up in Wehrmacht schools. Some of them, since they're a complete unit of a nation, they're going to speak their one language, and that's cool. And they have enough interpreters for communications with other units. But a lot of these guys, like I say, they started out unarmed, often with, sometimes just with an armband that said Hiwi or whatever, helper. And they'd help carry artillery. I mean, they'd help serve the guns, or the artillery pieces or something, and help carry the ammunition to the gun and whatnot. And and other sorts of stuff. But as time goes on, they more and more form support combat units within a division. So that would be people coming into your division without speaking German and without being trained in the German armed forces. And even if they're just helpers, that's going to disrupt your organization. It just is. I'm not saying it's like going to tear it apart or going to be so terrible we can't function, but it's going to disrupt your organization. It's just the way things sort of go. Okay. Yearly focus. I think last time we did this, which has good manpower benefits, and I think that's what we did. Or maybe we did Reich economics still. I don't remember, quite honestly. If you're interested enough, you can go back and look it up, but I don't remember. But going ahead, Achtung Panzer. The biggest problem with Achtung Panzer for me is, I mean, it just reduces it doesn't give us very much manpower. Where here, it does give us, but this does give us tank factories. Luftwaffe. VPAN. We don't need navals. Oh, yeah, we'd like them, but yeah, that's what we did last time, I think. Well, we're not going after the Soviet Union this year, so manpower is an issue, but it isn't. We're not going in 41 to the meat grinder. So I think right now we will take this. So we'll examine our tank factories and help the that manpower out. It's not as big. Okay, build new factories. I always want to go for this because these will stay on. This goes away. We were just I don't ever see using that. I guess only time I ever see the possibility of that is we're desperately losing and need to rush in, some sort of production. So we get all those loses are really gains. If it's actual lose, you'll actually see a -1. So this will cost us until the end of the year 2.5%, but we'll get all those tank factories, which will stay with us onward, which will help various armor and other type productions. Okay, let's hit this. We're fine-tuning, not exactly sure what that does. This is the one. We want to do short-term economic boost. And for our let's just go with extra spies. Creation of both of these divisions. Okay, so we're removing one infantry division, it looks like. Okay. And this is one that's sort of scaring me. Introduce new model Panzer Division 1941. I know what they did in history, so I want to examine this. I'm repeating myself. Introduce Panzer Division 1941, new model. Okay, by the start of Operation Barbarossa, the 21 Panzer divisions were rather different from those of the previous campaigns. On paper, the number of German Panzer divisions doubled. In reality, the new Panzer divisions consisted of only one Panzer regiment instead of two, together with 2 motorized regiments. The number of tanks in the 1941 style division was therefore relatively small compared to its predecessor's composition. All other units in these formations were fully motorized to match the speed of the tanks. Many of the motorized components were equipped with foreign trucks, artillery, and other vehicles, mostly from French arsenals. In the immediate perspective, the overall military potential grew by around 40%. However, the advantage of higher numbers produced the downside of higher maintenance requirements, inadequate supply of spare parts, and supply difficulties inside the Soviet Union. That is, Guderian, I believe, was highly against this. Like they say, it does, I haven't even looked at the effects yet, and we'll examine that in a minute. It does, the idea of having, instead of, say, 11 divisions, you have 21 divisions. It does mean that there are more motorized infantry divisions, more motorized artillery divisions, and all that. And even if you take out of however much foreign vehicles and artillery and whatnot, and there was definitely a lot of that, but it wasn't, I don't know the percentage of it. I would say mostly from foreign arsenals. Well, a lot of trucks were, I would say that. A lot of trucks were. But I think a lot of the artillery, I don't know many other, a lot of the artillery was German, I do believe. It increases the amount of fuel consumption, and it increases a lot of stuff without equal amount of increase in combat force. Now, had these divisions been used for a campaign of a limited duration, well, it's always theoretically limited duration, but one on a much more limited scale of, say, we're getting from here, German border, to here, Paris. You know, that is our distance planned area of operation. We need enough gasoline to drive from here to there with a bunch of playing around, maneuvering. We need enough ammo stockpiled and be able to be transported. It's not just how much ammo we're going to shoot, but have the ammo stockpiled ready and be able to transport it to the front and be able to transport it from a depot here. I think we're actually looking at Luxembourg, but okay, back here a little bit further. Have it there and be able to transport it effectively. Dump, here's your artillery shells. Gonna go back, get some more, trucks to do that and get some more, enough supply support to deal with this. And as we've talked about before, maintenance support. Basically, if you were to take a British tank and start here at Portsmouth and drive up to Inverness, you would have to stop 3 times, or no, 2 times. You have to stop 2 times. I don't mean stop like for an hour or a day, but stop and take that tank apart and put it back together again. Basically, you'd have to do that twice with a British tank. I don't know if you realize this. A British tank needs to be serviced, and this is the quality of production, needs to be serviced. Basically, either many small times or larger times, needs to be taken apart and put back together. Again, I want to say, I thought one British observer walked into and looked around and noticed something when he went to, I think this was in England, but into an American tank fitters yard. And I use that term very specifically because that's what the British are. We're tank fitters. Now, an American might be going, what's a tank fitter? What's a tank fitter? A mechanic. He walked into an American mechanical yard, shop, whatever, and noticed something that was remarkable. And he looked around and he noticed something, and he really realized something. There was something missing in an American, the most industrialized planet, or our most industrialized country on the planet, that they were missing a basic level of maintenance piece of equipment. You know what that maintenance piece of equipment was? A vise. A thing you put on a bench, and you put a piece of metal or something in it. You screw it tight to hold it to do it. You know why the Americans didn't have any vices? They didn't need them. There was no need for an American engineer shop, mechanic shop, to have a vise. Why would you have a vise? Because in a British engineer shop, they got this part from the factory. Try to stick it in the tank. It almost fits. Okay, we got to put it in the vise and file on it to make it fit. Fitters. Their production quality, to get it into an individual tank, you had to fit the pieces together. Whatever these mechanical pieces are, you had to fit them, you know, transmission components, wheel components, you had to fit them together. Where the Americans, and even when the Americans, that they're made in different factories. You know, not all Shermans came out of the same factory. But they're all going to use the same carburetor for the same engine type. You know, if the carburetor is going to fit it all, whether it was made in that factory or made in a factory on the other side of the country, all those carburetors for that same engine model were going to work. And if they're just so completely different, because there were different models of engines, and they briefly did a diesel experiment, and I don't know. But, you know, so if it's so different, it's not going to work because it's the wrong thing. But if it's the right thing, it doesn't matter what factory it was made in America and where, whether it was made in Chicago or New York State or wherever it was, in whatever factory, and bunch of the factories, these assembly factories, were originally railroad engine factories because they had the heavy lift cranes, and they converted them, all but one by, I think, 43, 44, I forget, all but one of the railroad tank manufacturers have been converted back to railroad engine manufacturers. Only one that was doing so good, they kept the rest. They basically did it as a temporary solution while they built proper tank factories. Had GM and others build proper tank factories. But all of these factories that build Shermans or Stuart light tanks or whatever it is, all the parts worked. You never needed to fit an engine component in an American tank. It just went in because Americans knew how to build stuff and measure it and put it in machine tools from any shop. The British couldn't, or wouldn't, or didn't take that as something needed. So they call them tank fitters, and they still to this day call them tank fitters instead of repair or whatever. I think their manufacturing quality's gone up, but you know, my grandmother used to drive Jaguars, and she loved them, but they didn't. And this was back in the 70s. It didn't work so well. Now we could go into, a gamer does talks about socialist manufacturing back in the 70s and government-run Jaguar factories, but that's another whole issue. So about, I think, and I may be overstating a little bit, but basically to get from Portsmouth up to here, just driving the tank on roads. This is why everybody uses, to some degree, tank carrying trucks, because trucks could drive further. Driving the tank would wear it out twice to get up to here. Now, when the British decided to test some American tanks, Shermans or Lees or whatever, they started driving them around. And driving them around. I think they went up and down or whatever couple of 3 times. Never needed to go into the repair shop to get fixed. Okay, so they didn't wear out. The Soviets loved the Sherman for a training tank because they could drive it and drive it and drive it. They train up their units when you know, a tank brigade, because that's often the unit, was well trained up and equipped up, and they have enough T-34s or whatever. They go, oh, okay, everybody get out of your Shermans. Here's the brand new T-34s. Go fight the Germans. Because they like the T-34s because of better armor, maybe depending on what models, maybe better guns. You know, the 85 millimeter gun, you know, on the T-34 85. But they really like their T-34. Now, you do see some Germans having captured Shermans on the East Front, so we know they had a few. Generally, many German captured vehicles get photographed because of their oddity. I mean, simply just by soldiers. You know, oh, here's, you know, something that's different. The Soviets, of course, for their propaganda purposes, wouldn't be photographing a lot of Western armor being fought. They sort of like some of the British stuff because it was some of the British models were heavier armored, although undergunned. I think they thought they were. But they didn't want to show off just how much they needed. So probably they used a bit more Shermans and Comets or whatever the different British tanks they used. Probably used a bit more than they want to let on in actual fighting. But they really love the Sherman, particularly for its training aspects. They would train up in a Sherman and then give the unit, once it's ready to go, a bunch of brand new set of T-34s that could maybe drive from here to here before they broke down. Okay, so this is sort of the reality. Now, the Germans had sort of the opposite problem, in my understanding, with their tanks than the British did. The Germans had their tanks were high maintenance. Some of them, here you can see here on this half track. See how these road wheels overlap? Well, they make for a rather smooth ride. And in that way, rather effective. But they also overlap, so to get at the different bogies and different things, you have to take them apart to get, take other things that you don't need to take apart to get to things. And this goes for a lot of the other tank, some of the tank models. These obviously aren't overlapping, but I guess like the Sherman the Panther is overlapping, and it varies from their different vehicles. The Germans were sort of overbuilt, over-manufactured, often very complicated to take apart and put together. Very high quality, but still needing a fairly high level of maintenance, just keeping things oiled, keeping things clean, because just the environment with not just the mud, but the dust, just getting in it and everything, and it becomes like sandpaper, so they're going to wear out. The opposite thing. And since they needed high tolerances on their equipment, I know this is a little bit more detailed on guns. A Soviet gun, you throw in the dust, throw a handful of dust in it, sort of shake it, but obviously still coated in dust. It'll still work because it's just that sloppy of a gun. You get a molecule or whatever, a little bit more than that, but into a German Luger, it's going to jam because the tolerances are so high. The German Luger is a much better gun out on the range, but much more susceptible to jamming due to the environment. So you want a nice, highly precision-made pistol, buy a German Luger. Want something reliable in combat, stay away from a German Luger. You can sort of compromise at a 1911, not quite as sloppy as some of the Soviet sort of junky weapons, particularly during war production, on pistols, very much so. Or you can go with a 1911 that's pretty good. Like I've got a East German manufactured Makarov. Man, that gun is... The action on it, the slide action, is just like glass. It moves, and it just came from some, I bought it used, but originally it came, just most likely warehoused away. I had a little dealings at the fall of the trying to import firearms, so I know a little bit about some of the stuff. A lot of these guns, they made a bunch of them, and they warehoused, and they weren't hardly used, and even a lot of the police and other people that use these Makarovs were hardly shot them, and the East German ones are made on the same design as the Soviet made ones, but they're about 2 or 3 times the quality, and they're, like I say, it's for a communist bloc weapon, and these are definitely communist bloc weapons. They are super high quality. The other super high quality communist bloc weapons were, even during the communist era, were the Czech guns, the CZs. But basically the rest are fairly crude stuff. Now, just because I live in America and don't get my hands on fully automatic weapons, I really don't know, but I do believe that's a similar case with Eastern German AKs compared to Soviet-made AKs. So it's just sort of different national design philosophies, even if they're designing the same item. I know this to be true, a bit more in guns, but I do think it also holds true in the automotive elements of these vehicles. Really well done, but when something breaks inside of them, you sort of got to take 10 other things out to finally get at it, so it takes longer. So what happens, because not necessarily that the tanks break down so much, and I don't know that they break down any more than, say, a British tank. They definitely, my understanding is, break down less than a Soviet tank. But the now the very, very very early, the Kursk Panthers that were hardly ready. Those half of them broke down just getting from the the 20 miles from literally almost half, and it was about like 20 miles or less from the railhead to the front, the starting front line. About literally half of them broke down, and they were almost invariably all transmission problems. There was something really wrong with the very early transmissions of the Panther. But throughout the combat history of the Panther, it has transmission problems, and I've sort of been made aware that it may have not been a real transmission problem. The idea is, and people can talk about it, remember there was once a big debate on the Paradox Forum about it, but the ongoing transmission problems. Well, as I've learned a bit more, what some of the problems wasn't that the transmission was faulty, or the thought was that it was under strength for starting and stopping so much heavy metal of a tank. It was just not up to doing it. Well, what really the problem was is it was way up here in the front of the vehicle, and to get at it you had to basically I don't know, maybe pull the turret off or some. You had to massively just to do any sort of maintenance on the transmission, you had to basically disassemble the tank, and you needed one of those. And you see photos in the field, sort of an not H shape, or not a U, but squared off arch kind of thing, to be able to lift up, that the Germans hadn't for field maintenance kind of thing. Be able to really disassemble it to get at that transmission, to get that transmission out of the vehicle, to be able to do even basic maintenance on it. So you designed this Panther tank really well, and they really designed, the engine was super light for its engine power, because they were trying to keep the weight down to make it very mobile. And so you're designing this thing, but you have this critical element of the transmission that needs a fair amount of maintenance, just basically cleaning it out, cleaning out the gunk in it, and putting new oil or transmission fluid in. Again, I'm not very big on car maintenance, but cleaning out this transmission and keeping it in good shape. And if you don't do that, it will break. Just as a statement of fact, it will break. Even if you are really nice on it and drive it on flat terrain, and not trying to climb steep inclines and then abuse it and in and out of reverse and whatever, sort of drive it in combat, which may make it break easier and quicker. But even if you're just going on really nice, not putting any stress on the system, speeding up, slowing down easy, whatever it is to keep the system going, if you don't do the maintenance on the transmission, this is again my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it will break eventually. And I don't mean eventually as in 10 years from now. It's going to break, because it's going to get enough gunk and other stuff in it that it's going to mess it up enough that it's going to collapse and break. So you have this, and then you have the situation of, oh shit, we're losing the war. We don't have time to do all this maintenance on stuff. And then you go, oh shit, my tank broke. I can't move it. I need to be towed. Calling on the radio, get a tow out here. Well, many times, they got a tow, another tank or two. But if you're being shot at, they're being artilleried. There were a lot of tanks abandoned because they broke. A lot of Panthers, including on the west. And they also abandoned vehicles because they ran out of gas and couldn't get more gas to them, too. So the idea is you have high levels of maintenance. Now, when you're advancing into the Soviet Union and your tank breaks, I know I'm going on for a long time, but this is important, I think. You're advancing into the Soviet Union and your tank breaks, fine, it breaks. Maintenance truck, recovery team, some of those half-tracks that are supposed to be towing your Flak 18s or whatever. Don't know the exact model of the the SDKF, whatever, but the heavy ones, and sometimes there's Tigers, there's two of them. But some of these lighter vehicles, obviously Panzer IIs are pretty damn light, but Panzer IIIs and IVs, you wait for them to come up, come up to your vehicle, fine, tow it back to wherever the field yard is. Well, by the time you get near Moscow, a lot of these tank divisions were down to less than 20% of their tanks, and most of the loss from being effective losses was simply mechanical breakdowns that they were strung out in various repair shops waiting to be repaired. So let me put that again. They were down to about 20% because driving the tanks, some of it, yeah, was combat damage, you know, something goes in, slams in, doesn't kill the tank, but hits a transmission, hits an engine compartment, and doesn't drive anymore until you get new ones, and it's very worth repairing. But a bunch of it was just because of driving it into the Soviet Union in the good weather. This was during the good weather, the advance before the snow. About much of these panzer divisions were down to about, of their tanks, were down to about 20% of their strength because of needs of maintenance. Well, if you've already cut your panzer divisions in half, number of tanks in half, that means these divisions are now just light motorized divisions because they have 2 motorized regiments instead of 3 motorized regiments or regiments. Often motorized regiments, again, I don't know specifically on all these, had fewer battalions than regular infantry regiments just because they didn't have enough vehicles, so they were slightly understrength regiments compared to a infantry battalion. So what you get is a bunch of understrength units going in. Would work if you needed to hit a lot of places and have a lot of flexible maneuvers in a short duration action. But in this, it was just the fatal mistake in going after the Soviet Union, was to cut all the strengths in half, for at least for most of the divisions. Okay, so that's my take on all of this from my understanding. Okay, increase the numbers but not their size. No need. I'm scared of this. Love to have your comment, revolverheld, if you want to. Is there any other downsides? I mean, I'll take that, but I'm going to go no need because I'm afraid that that's going to trigger specialty divisions showing up. You know, forcing me to have a okay. Well, one, you're hearing the fire department come by. Big hook and ladder truck right outside my window. Okay, don't know if there's a fire or just some other emergency, but there's a big hook and ladder truck, you know, the big thing, but we have no high rises around here. So there needs to be a so this is a bug report also, revolver held. There needs to be some sort of flag on the no need for this. I may go in and put it myself. Presume there's one for if you picked it. But that now, what I want to do is, I have not. Okay, well, let's just play a little bit. I'm trying to supply you. You're not moving. Lots of air power here, though. Not knowing if it's doing any good. Now, they're just a manpower bonus for a, because a bunch of the, oh, there we go, we've been waiting for that. If it's just, because a bunch of the divisions that we do upgrade by events, particularly upgrading from, and I do take them, and that may be just what it is, and maybe that's not, and I may ask them off camera, because since that's still hanging around. Ooh, lots of stuff here, which will probably be for the next episode. We've already sort of gone through this. Now, the reason I go through this and get these here is because this is getting us a medium tank tank regiment instead of 2 or whatever it would be otherwise, light armor units. Okay, Swedish iron for Germany, Swedish iron ore. Isn't it supposed to have an image there? Okay, if any other faction other than the Axis. Okay, so thought they had an iron ore brick thingy, or bricks of iron. Okay, gun position, 20 engineer plates. We'll take care of that and get that off. Actually, you know, we're going to end the episode here. I'll talk too long on the last one. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. I really do appreciate that. And of course, can you please post questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, corrections below? Love hearing from you. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.